I'm fascinated by the fragmentation of memory in a time and by what happens to our memory and the stories that we tell ourselves that we think are truth but really aren't. All of my work, specifically since about 2008, has been what I refer to as an unresolved narrative. I became aware of this when my father passed away, and I realized that my memories of him were like a film strip, and frames were being cut out and then put back together. And so my memory wasn't complete. In my pieces, the overlapping frames that occur are kind of like that flicker of a motion picture camera. It's telling a story, but one that maybe is not that closely related to the reality of the scene. It's not documentary work. It's not reportage. It's a fiction story. And everybody brings their own conclusion to the story, and that's really important to me. I think about it a lot. You know, we're all at that age now where a lot of our older relatives, in my case, my older relatives are all, starting to die. And I think about what's lost in the memory of that. And a lot of the places that I photograph are in a state of decay. I'm not interested really in new. New doesn't excite me. I'm interested in places that have a soul to them. There have been people living there for generations, and you can see that on the walls and the floors. And that are things that I use as visual cues when I'm telling the story. And I like to make sure that they're in the frames. And a lot of the places that I've made work in don't exist anymore. They've been demolished, they've fallen down, I no longer have access to it. So I'm always on sort of the hunt to find the perfect setting, if you will, to be able to then create my artwork within that. It's funny, living in Vermont informs my work a lot more than I think years ago I would have thought it did. The nice part about living in Vermont in a town of 925 people is that it gives me a lot of time to think about what I want my work to say. It gives me time to experiment with different films, different developers, and how all those things are going to interact. And I don't think I would have that ability or that luxury of time if I was in a major city. It's isolating, but it also gives me a chance to think. My wife, who's my model, my muse, my partner, and everything, we share and talk about our works together constantly, and we both live this whole full sort of art life. Art informs everything that we do throughout the day. It's nice because we can have these very honest conversations about the work. I'm fortunate that I have a life partner who can talk about my work and show me things that I sometimes don't even know about it. I've been photographing my wife now for probably 26 years. She's posed for well over 100,000 images, if not more. And a lot of those were test images, but a lot of them were making a work of art, and my family is really the foundation on which I make all my work on. I chose my family because it's about trust. They know what I'm looking for, and I see them every single day. So I have a connection to them, and I'm very aware of who they are. But I'm also acutely aware that in a handful of years, it's just going to be my wife and I. And that's actually one of the more painful things for me, is that only when my oldest daughter, Greta, moved away from home here this fall to go to college in New York, did I really realize, wait a minute. And that's been something that I'm aware that eventually I'll lose my daughter, Ilse. I love my family dearly, and I love using my family as part of my work. And it's hard for me as a father, so I'm trying to use them as much as I can whenever I'm with them. And I think if I'm honest, I can not just use them as a generic model, but use them for who they are and what each one brings to my work. I made the decision back in probably 2005 or 6 to only do one of ones. Prior to that, like most photographers, I have gone through this idea of doing editions. And I did that, and what I realized was, the idea of going back and having to reprint an artwork is the last thing on earth I would ever want to do. I would rather do almost anything than have to go back and make a work of art again. Making one is the greatest relief ever, at least in my mind as an artist. You've made the one piece, now go make something else. It's all about the subject, and it's all about the final artwork. I mean, for me, a lot of people, their negatives are precious. My negatives are not precious to me. I mean, they're precious to me if it's a picture of one of my daughters, or if it's a picture of my wife, because it's marking, obviously, a time in their lives. But if it's an artwork piece, once I've done the scan of the negative and I've made the one-of-a-kind artwork on the wall, I never revisit that negative, ever. I love the fact that when someone buys one of my artworks, that they'll live with it as part of their life, and it isn't just something that's going to be on a gallery wall. That, once again, is that idea and that story is traveling, and it's evolving with them in their lives. And that's one of the things that I find very rewarding as an artist, especially when I get to meet someone who bought a piece of work maybe a couple of years ago, and they talk to me about the work. I love that, that it becomes part of their life, and it isn't just something on the wall. My name's Schaub, and I'm an artist who lives in Paulette, Vermont.